I mean, I think there's a wide number of teams I think that could try to trade up too. I mean, because this is gonna be a year in which somebody's gonna slip, right? I think Memphis has tried to trade up. I know they've tried to trade up, but for who? Is it actually for Klingon? Is that a smokescreen? I don't know. All I know is that on paper, Klingon makes a hell of a lot of sense for you guys.
The only two guys I could see Memphis trading up for would be Sheppard or Klingon.
Both of them make sense. Now, with Sheppard, tell like the appeal with Klingon's obvious. You guys need a center. Pair him with Jaren Jackson Jr. You guys can still play fast. You're still young. He fits with Ja. Everything makes sense. What's the appeal of Reed Sheppard for Memphis?
You need a third guard, right? You can have another third guard. And if you're losing Kennard in the offseason, the more shooting you can get out there with Morant, the better. That's the trick, right? You're opening up space for your stars. And so you're going to need, they've got three needs, right? They got to figure out whatever they're going to do at three, and then they've got to figure out a center, and they've got to figure out a backup point guard. And Sheppard is the kind of guy that I think you give the ball to. And you say, all right, right? And then we're going to, and it's a perfect spot for him to develop as well, right? Because then he's running out there with Gigi Jackson. He's running out there with Brandon Clark. He's running out there with Vince Williams. Like he's got good players around him on a second unit, and he can also be a guy that fills in for he can also sub out for Desmond Bain. He can sub out for all manner of guys just to space the floor. Everybody needs shooting, and I just think he is such a he is so good at that particular skill. And when you have any of these teams that have stars on their team, want to get the maximum amount of space for those stars. And so being the best shooter in the draft is always going to make you desirable. On the Klingon front, that's the most obvious for sure.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
need a center. It's a fit next to Jaren Jackson Jr. I'll tell you this. I do not think Memphis is going to stay at 9. I would be stunned if they stay at 9. I think they will either trade up or they will trade down. But if they just stayed at 9 and took the 9th player that comes off the board, I would be blown away.
I think there's a wide number of teams I think that could try to trade up too. I mean, because this is gonna be a year in which somebody's gonna slip, right?
Well, and there's also teams that want to get out of their pick.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw that report about the Caruso deal, but saying Sacramento almost had him, and it was a deal that centered around the 13th pick in the draft. This was Anthony Slater and Sam Amick had an article about this, saying kind of they're big game hunting. They're going big. They want to improve now. They got Brown locked up. They got Malik Monk locked up. And now the 13th pick is, quote, very available. And they thought they had that in a package with. But as you were saying with Houston, to me, and we talked about this last week, you got enough young guys. Like now that is a valuable asset. How can I improve my team with that asset? And is the best way to improve my team with that asset taking the guy who is available at number 3 and pairing him up with, I've already got 6 guys I'm trying to develop as young players on my team. So they say they're going to pick up the team option on Jayshawn Tate. They are going to guarantee the contracts of Jeff Green, and they're going to guarantee the contract of who was the other one? Green and Jock Landale. And the idea there is the reason they're picking up those contracts is so they've got something to put together with that pick for whatever they can attain back from a team. That doesn't mean they won't draft a player in this draft, but I think I'd be a little surprised if Houston took somebody 3. I think this is their chance to use that asset. And as we talked about, they've got Thompson, they've got Amen Thompson, they've got Jalen Green, they've got Tari Eason, they've got Jabari Smith Jr., they've got Şengün, they've got Cam Whitmore. I mean, that's 6 off the top of my head, Kev, that are in the first 3 years. They don't need any more young guys on that team. They've got to kind of balance that thing out. And so I don't think they'll take somebody 3. I really don't. I don't know if that's a trade with Memphis. I just think whether, they they've been rumored to, try to take shots at Mikal Bridges and players like that before, but that they're kind of big game hunting as well. So then the draft goes haywire, right? If 3 gets moved, now who the hell knows?
Sure. I mean, well, that's one of the interesting things about what Gavoni had in his reporting on Monday. Draft Express reported that the Rockets are big game hunting for guys like Kevin Durant, Jimmy Butler, Mikal Bridges, Brandon Ingram. I mean, like, those are some big names that Gavoni just threw out there as dream targets for Houston. Now, I don't think those guys are necessarily available for the number 3 pick, but it's intriguing with all the stuff out there about Jimmy Butler, perhaps. I mean, Howard Beck said something on The Ringer last week about how he believes Butler will be dealt by the Heat. So would 3 for Butler, an old man, and Jimmy Butler in his mid-30s really makes sense for the young Rockets? I'm not so sure about that. I think that's a bit rich.
Things they're stocked up. I just listed 6 young guys.
Yeah.
Any of those 6 could move. Any of them. You could move Jalen Green. You could move Şengün. You could move Jabari is the one I would not move. Honestly. Like, he's the one I for sure would not move. But any of the other ones, again, there is some overlap with guys. Certainly at the end of the season, when Şengün was out, you saw a different Jalen Green. And I'm still a huge Jabari Smith Jr. believer, but, you could get a really good young player, Tari Eason or Cam Whitmore, or like some of these guys that they've got there. They're not all going to get to play. So, if you're looking for a rebuild, or you're looking for a return from a star, I think Houston's actually got the goods to get you a return for a star.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you?
Yeah, they do. That's why those names are all very interesting. Every one of them.
The Durant thing is crazy, too, because I have wondered a lot about Durant. There were the reports last year that he wasn't so happy, but I know they just hired Mike Budenholzer. But I do kind of look at their team, and they're in jail in terms of improving their team. And is anybody there sitting back and going, what are we doing? Are we really going to just run this back? Like, we have no means to get better. And we're not moving Booker. And nobody wants Beal. Like, it would be the obvious thing. If Kevin Durant got moved this summer, it would not shock me. Would it shock you?
It would shock me a little bit.
I mean, how else are they getting better?
I mean, I agree with you. That's why it makes sense. But at the same time, he is Kevin Durant, and it is a team that's kind of locked up, and it feels like they made such a significant investment in him. It'd be a bit surprising.